to get this out of the way right at the beginning, this review will be about the films in the Jeepers Creepers franchise and not the man who created it.
Jeepers, baby, yeah, those hungry, hungry eyes you give me. Here is, baby, keep those peepers on.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So, this is a thing that exists. Where to start? Well, why not start at the beginning? Which, I'm gonna say, is one of the only parts that I have to compliment. I mean, it looks nice. The acting is a little on the cringe side, and same for the dialogue, but surprisingly, I think that was intentional. As far as being a short retelling of the inciting incident from the first film, it does its job, and it even sets up that this is a reboot, and that in this version, the creature is a man. Or so you would think. And then we get to the real story, because it turns out that this is all a made-for-TV type thing. Think of like a Ghost or Bigfoot or like Ancient Aliens type TV show. It's all being watched on the secondary main character's phone. We'll call him Boyfriend from here on out. And he is riding in the car that's being driven by the main girl, who is our main character. They have a conversation that seems to have been pulled straight out of God's Not Dead 3.
The Earth is flat. Nazis are camped out on the moon. Elvis lives. The Apollo landing was faked.
Your precious science doesn't have all the answers.
Conspiracy theories have no answers.
Y'all get it wrong all the time. Copernicus, Aristotle, even... Don't do that. Don't do that.
Newton, Einstein, Hawking.
It's a big world. Strange things happen all the time.
2 words. Occam's razor. That's why I'm a scientist. The simplest explanation is most likely to be true.
Well, this is also pretty simple, Brainiac.
Introducing your audience to your main characters is something that every writer should be heavily invested in getting right. And this is how they chose to introduce us to the main characters, with really cringe dialogue about the nature of belief versus science, just telling us that he is a total skeptic and she believes in science. One of these characters, Boyfriend, will continue to have that characteristic. This characteristic kind of gets dropped for Girlfriend. Then we get explicit dialogue about whether or not this is a soft reboot taking place in the same continuity as the first 3 films, or a hard reboot. And we're told that
3, actually, but none of that is real. And it was named after a cheesy LA cable
this is really weird to me, seeing as the only reason why this film exists is because it is in the Jeepers Creepers franchise. Otherwise, this film probably would not exist, and it wouldn't make any money, that's for sure. And so it seems really weird that they would actively shit on the rest of the franchise. This is something that we've seen in particularly the latest phase of Marvel movies and shows, sometimes in external promotional material for Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or even Jurassic Park. But in all those instances, at least they can fall back on the excuse of having what they perceive to be a new audience that they are actually reaching. Whereas here, I don't know how they could justify it that way. I don't know why you would attack the people that are paying to see your product. You can totally do that. However, if you're going to say that the other 3 films are bad, which don't get me wrong, they're not perfect. I think that 1 and 2 are pretty good, though they are extremely flawed. I think 2 is slightly better than 1, but I could definitely be argued the other way. 3 isn't great. Making a new film better than at least 3 should be an easy task, but apparently not. Apparently for these people it was extremely difficult. From here, we're cutting to the creature, or the creeper, as they love to keep referring to it as. I think that's really lame, but I understand that's a personal preference. I wouldn't have them in the universe refer to it as the creeper. But we see it crawling out from a brick and mortar building. It's unclear where it's supposed to be, but for right now, that's not super important. The creature is all dried out from 23-year hibernation, and its skin cracks as it wakes up. And this is fine. There's some pretty good practical effects, at least for right now. The new design of the creeper looks really bad, considering the only thing they've really bothered with was the head. Everything else just looks like a normal person. We get introduced to some new abilities or characteristics of the creature. The first one being that it sees basically how everyone else does, but has a purple filter over the stuff that it should eat. I guess it starts to eat some worms to regenerate. Some of the other new abilities that this film introduces is they give it what I can only really describe as a human whistle, like a dog whistle, but it works on humans. It also has the ability to be regenerated by crows. We're gonna hold off on talking for that one right now. Then we meet super fabulous gay guy, I suppose. He really doesn't have any other characteristics other than he's extremely flamboyant. I mean, that's fine, I guess. It's just a really odd way to characterize someone who really didn't need a whole lot of characteristic. They chose to do it that way. I wouldn't have, but you know, okay. The creature attacked the guy by wrapping the flares on its head around his head as another new ability that they've given the creature. I'll admit, I don't check it too often, but pretty sure that shoving stuff against your face makes it harder to eat, not easier, but okay. Then our two main characters are on the road and they decide to go into an antique shop, and they meet the psychic lady, which is a weird choice to bring from the 3 previous films. In all 3 previous films, there's been a female character that is either a psychic or can speak to ghosts, and in the first 2, it's used fairly effectively to drive the plot forward as well as give exposition. The 3rd film, it is used to have characters hold a cut off hand of the creature, and supposedly they see how it was created and how they can kill it. But I mean, the sheriff that also does that, he then tries to shoot the creature with a Gatling gun and doesn't seem to do anything. Yeah, the 3rd film's really not that great, but it's still somehow better than this one. So the psychic lady touches main girl, and she begins to have visions, which are very confusing. I guess they're supposed to be metaphorical, but she is seeing them how we're seeing them, and they don't make a whole lot of sense. Throughout the film, we get more and more of them, and in each of them, they have the cult standing around a fireplace. The creature is standing there with an old baby carriage. Then the psychic lady has this interaction with main girl.
Oh, and congratulations to you both. Oh, he doesn't know.
Now, main girl doesn't know that she's pregnant. Like, as far as we're aware, this could be the day after. She apparently hasn't been experiencing morning sickness. She only takes a pregnancy test later in the film. So that brings us to something that I never thought that I would have to ask of a writer. Do you know how babies work? Because the psychic visions have the creature with the baby carrier. And she just found out that she's pregnant. So the creature in this, they still established, has a 23-day hunt cycle. So it's not going to be around for the baby to be in any state that it would be able to be in a baby carrier. This isn't helped by the fact that one of the psychic visions says that the reason why the cult is trying to get the baby to the creature is because they believe if the creature eats the baby, it will gain eternal life.
Take the baby. His life force belongs to you. Live forever. Take the baby. His life force belongs to you.
What? You do know that people aren't immortal, right? It's not as though you're born and then they go, well, now you're mortal, you're gonna die. If you had just stayed in the womb, then you would have lived forever. I don't know even how to describe this. Like, retarded feels generous. I don't know if there is a word for just how plain moronic that is. I don't know why you would ever choose to have that be a writing decision. I suppose now is a good time to address the cult, because they will be an important thing moving forward. Somehow a cult has formed around the creature. It's weird because they still maintained from the previous films that it only comes around for 23 days every 23 years. Most of the cult look like they've had the chance to experience it once, maybe a second time. It's confusing where, like, do they communicate with it? If so, how? Why do they worship this thing? The closest thing that we've had to this previously was in the third film, where they established that there is a group of survivors from the last time that it attacked in the 70s that all want to get revenge on it. For the most part, you know, they established that most of the people that are part of that group were like kids who had like either their parents or siblings taken away by the creature. Whereas this, I don't know why they would be there to worship the creature. And we get the reveal later. It's really hard to tell because the CGI is really bad. The dialogue tells us they've been apparently luring people to the church in the final act, killing them to offer the creature, which, so they're just a murder cult then, right? Because did they even know when the creature was going to show up? I mean, no one was around when it did wake up, which seems really weird because you'd think that you would want the cult to be there if you're going to establish that the cult worships the creature. You'd think that you'd want them there for when it wakes up, but no. Getting back to our main characters though for just a minute, they get to the hotel, then we get a montage of the girl putting on all sorts of different cosplay outfits. Yeah, it's cringe. It definitely comes off as one of those, hey, look how attractive the actress is. I'm like, yep, I get that, but I'm kind of here to see a movie. Does this have anything to do with the story? No? Oh, so we can move on then, right? Nope. Okay, we're still here. So after it's finally done, the only bit of characterization that we get is that she asks her boyfriend, who got her to do this, like, she didn't want to dress up for her, and she made that very clear, but then decided to try them all on to cheer him up. She asked him,
What are you gonna wear?
What? Oh, this.
A t-shirt?
and he says,
Not just any t-shirt. this t-shirt.
So this is important because there's a plot line throughout the whole film where he wants to ask her to marry him. And so far, they've only shown us 2 instances of not only them not being interested in what the other one is interested in, but in both instances, the guy has forced her into his hobby or interest. I'm not really seeing why she'd be interested in this relationship, but we'll touch back on that later. They go to a horror festival that is apparently happening in the middle of spring because they didn't change that from the previous films. It comes out every 23rd spring. You could have made it every 23rd fall, or hell, even made it every 10th fall, but no, it's still every 23rd spring. For whatever reason, they've chosen to have a horror festival in the middle of spring, not around Halloween. Just a lot of people walking around in costumes of IPs that they definitely don't own. I'm sure there were a lot of people who signed on to display their talent or whatever in a movie. However, there's also a sword swallower, which apparently they really wanted that shot, but didn't want to pay for someone to actually perform that illusion. Instead, they have a really bad CGI sword and looks really bad and is kind of indicative of the rest of the film. So the whole point is to introduce us to a lot of tertiary characters such as Redneck Man and Influencer Girl. We also get the scene where the creeper runs his truck into a Wi-Fi tower, because they make clear that it's not a cell tower. No one loses cell service. They do lose Wi-Fi service, which later will cause them to not be able to use one of their cameras. I don't know, surely on set somebody must have been like, oh, but the camera doesn't need Wi-Fi to operate. I can operate it without Wi-Fi, but no. So the cult get it so that the boyfriend and main girl are selected to do a escape room in this abandoned church, and so they all hop into a van and they go to a graveyard where the church is. And this was really bizarre because the outside shots were clearly shot on location. All this stuff outside of the graveyard, it would appear they shot outside at night, and it doesn't look great, but it looks a whole lot better than once they go into the graveyard and everything switches to really poor green screen. I'm not sure why they did that. I don't think it was a budget thing, because I imagine it would be cheaper to just go outside than to use green screens. The only thing I can think of is that maybe they did it because of COVID, but I don't even know if that would be a valid excuse. So they walk through the cemetery, and it's all really poor green screen, and they're all very brightly lit to the point where they have a Bruce Almighty moon to try and account for the lighting. And I feel bad for the people who had to do the special effects afterward. But so then main girl gets taken by the creature, and the rest of our characters run to the church, and then the cult locks them into the church, which they could totally get out of if they just pushed some of the 3 boards that are on the window out of the way, but never mind. And then there's a bunch of contrived nonsense and stupid conflict between the characters that doesn't make any sense. Then the characters end up in the attic where they confront the creature, and a Redneck Man pulls out his gun and tries to shoot the creature, and it holds out its hand like it's Darth Vader and just tanks the shots, which ends up destroying its hand. I don't know why it chose to do that. I mean, I know the other films aren't canon, but in the second film, we see the creature see a gun, and it definitely has a negative reaction to that. And in the first film, it holds Derry hostage so that it won't get shot. Then the third film, yeah, it completely ignores that, but the third film's not great. They end up running away from the creature, and for whatever reason, influencer girl, she runs off on her own, and then the creature goes after her and eats her brain, and then the rest of the characters find themselves all together, including main girl, and they're making a plan on how to defeat the creature, which is absolute nonsense. We find out that their plan is to essentially lure the creature downstairs so that the girl can get it to walk out in front of the church, and then Redneck Man and Boyfriend can take the weather vane from the top of the church and use it as a spear to kill the creature. Now, how they know that they could even get up to the weather vane, or that it would be loose, or that would stop the creature at all, nobody knows. They just assume that they can totally do all these things. Also, yeah, the main girl says that she'll marry Boyfriend if they survive this. Nobody knows why that would happen. They still haven't established that this is a healthy relationship. But so Redneck Man and producer guy, they go upstairs with a couple of sticks and are planning on attacking the creature, and then the creature surprise jumps behind them, and it doesn't use the human whistle. Feels really weird because, you know, last time you encountered one of these guys, he kind of destroyed your hand with a gun. Whatever, we've forgotten about the human whistle. After the creature kills producer man, Redneck ends up destroying the record player. Apparently the creature had a real attachment to, even though it didn't use it when it was trying to get the baby, but oh well.
Scratch! Scratch! You scratch my CD!
And Redneck Man and Boyfriend are able to lure the creature downstairs, where it sees main girl standing outside and randomly decides that it's gonna attack her instead of following up with Boyfriend and Redneck Man. She's asking to be attacked. I know the original film isn't canon, but that was kind of the big part of the climax, was that it refuses to attack the main girl in that when she's asking it to. But it goes outside and
How do you like those peepers, bitch?
And yeah, it was just as cringe seeing it for the first time as it has been every other time. They created their own Jeepers Creepers song for this film, and the word peepers only appears like twice. Again, this is a song that the girl hasn't heard, so why she would say this, I don't know, and it doesn't make any sense, but I guess they thought it was really cool. Then Boyfriend and Redneck are able to use the weather vane to stab the creature, and then a murder of crows flies around, and Redneck Man sort of just falls off the roof. I feel really bad because there was probably hardly any set for the actor, but I mean, come on. This is a take that you tell your actor, no, we're doing that again. But then the crows proceed to pick off parts of the creature until it's all gone, and the cops arrive in this very awful shot, and that brings us to the end of the film, where we're introduced to the new ability that they've decided to give the creature, which is that it can be regenerated by crows. Yeah, you heard that right. It regenerated by crows. When its whole gimmick is that it eats what it needs to survive, you can't have it just be able to be regenerated. That's not how that should work. Like, if it can just be regenerated, why does it need to eat people? Overall, this is just a terrible, terrible film. And, you know, I hope that the actors and everyone who tried hard on this goes on to do bigger and better things, you know, but I hope that the director and certainly the writer should probably pick up a few, I don't know, community college courses on film or something, because, geez, this is really bad. You know, if they tried their hardest, I mean, good for them, but they still made a terrible movie. So, yeah, overall, this film has to be a 2 out of 10 and not a 1 because it doesn't fuck with space or time, but as far as my enjoyment of this film goes, there was none. It's not even to the point where I could laugh at it, it's just terrible. So, yeah, on that note, don't watch this film, and happy Halloween!